Good morning, everybody. How you doing? Today is Sunday Funday on August 31st in the year 2568 in the Buddhist calendar and 2525 in the Gregorian calendar. I guess we don't use the Julian calendar anymore, and I'm not quite sure what the date would be if we did use the Julian calendar. But anyway, good morning to everybody. Fantastic to see you here. It's absolutely wonderful. It's nice and cool out. And we are really before the dawn today, which is really kind of cool in a way because we don't normally do it like this. But how are you guys all doing? EC Honest, hi, how you doing, brother? Zahid Gofam, hi, how you doing, brother? Amir Salim, hello. Wassalamu alaikum. Menza Gamer, how are you, bro? I'm good, man. I'm grateful and thankful for every day of life and the ability to be able to go on these walks, experience conversations with people like you guys in the chat, because the world is a changing place, man, and we have to adapt. And humans are very good at adapting, but we don't adapt quite fast enough. So unless we try to supercharge it, make it a little faster. But anyway, I only say that because I'm 55. So, but yeah, man, we're going out on this walk today. Basically, I walk every single morning, and what I do is I walk 7 kilometer. So I try to walk 7 kilometers. Good for your mind. What's up, brother? How you doing? Why are you walking at the road at night? Looks. Well, let me tell you something. It is far less dangerous here than most of the places I've been in the world, particularly where I grew up. So this is quite peaceful and it's quite nice. But that it is Sunday morning and sunrise is in like 20 minutes. So we're at Sunday morning in the year 2568 or the year 2025. So I kind of want to get out a little bit early because I want to see the sunrise. Like sometimes I get out a little bit too late and the sun's like already up over the mountains and stuff like that. I like to see it when it that massive power energy is just like breaking over the horizon, because it's just a spectacular sight to see, and I enjoy seeing it. Little scary. What are you guys all scared of? Jeez Louise, man. There's nothing to be. I mean, well, what are you guys gonna be scared about? Okay, what's up, Jed? Jed Ralston, where are you, bro? I am in the province of Payaw in Thailand, which is northeast Thailand. And more specifically, where I am is between the cities of Chiang Mai and Chiang Rai. And on the east and west, we have mountain ranges. So we're like in a nice valley, which is really good for agriculture, growing rice, cattle, or chickens, pork, whatever, stuff like that. Oh, yeah, you in Udantani. All right, Udantani. Where the heck is Udantani again? Isn't that near Isan? Isan doesn't get much rain, though, right? Nice, I love Chiang Mai. Jed says, nice, I love Chiang Mai, one of my favorite places I have visited in Thailand. All right, well, yeah, man, it's a lot of history. And it's also not like, well, when I first came to Thailand, I first came to Thailand 25 years ago. Chiang Mai was not overrun with tourists back then. And you would have to take the train that took like 2 days to get there and stuff like that. And I remember those days fondly. At the moment, they're building a new train system. It's like a bullet train that's going to go from Bangkok to Chiang Mai, and unfortunately, or fortunately, I don't know, it's going to pass right near here. So you'll be able to go from Chiang Mai to Bangkok in like rapid speed. I don't know how fast, but quickly. Oh yeah, heaps of dirty hippies now. Oh, what do they call them? Bagpackers or something like that. I remember when bagpackers started showing up. That was that, I mean, they might have had them the whole time, but I remember seeing bagpackers like 20, 25 years ago. There used to be this one famous bagpacker. I don't know if he's still alive or not, but he would get in the news, and he actually had a disability. One of his legs, he had elephantitis in it, right? And he'd like sit out there with his one leg that had elephantitis, and people would give him money, and they'd like try and help him out. I mean, he would get considering, because he had elephantitis in that one leg. I don't know if you ever heard about that guy, but I think that he's actually barred from the kingdom now because they got hip to his game. I don't know, not sure. But I remember him. He was like maybe one of the most famous bagpackers there were. But I guarantee you, they got him all over. I went to Cambodia one time, to Sihanoukville. This is many years ago. I normally would not have gone to Cambodia. I have no desire to go to Cambodia or anything like that. But a guy that I was in the Navy with and I grew up with had gone to Sihanoukville, and he had like lost his mind. And he was living on the beach, and he wasn't like taking any checks out of the bank or anything like that. And he was begging for alcohol, and and so he didn't know that I actually knew where he was, because like Facebook was like a new thing, whatever, so I was like looking at like things in Facebook. I had an idea that he was in Sihanoukville, and there was like a picture, and this is really got me going. My friend is about the same age as me, and so he was in his 30s at the time, and some 20-year-old kid decided to take a picture of him like pressing his balls up against his head and stuff like that. I saw that, and I just said I was on the next bus to the border. Then I got in a taxi, and I went to Sihanoukville with a picture, like a real small picture of my friend. And I found him within 2 hours. And, I asked him, what the fuck, what are you doing and everything like that, and so on and so forth and everything like that. And he just said, he didn't care. He just didn't care. He was having a good time. He became like a full-blown alcoholic, and he was living on the beach, and like he had, I don't know. For him, it was okay. For me, it was not okay. I tried to convince him to leave with me. I was going to take him back to Thailand, put him up in an apartment, get him hooked up with his family again, and whatever. But he decided not to. So I just gave him a little bit of money, and I said, "Listen, Patrick, man, you're a grown man. You're on your own." And I left. And I don't feel bad about it at all. He did end up leaving Cambodia. And he ended up leaving with plenty of drama, like he had somehow stolen a motorbike and made it, I don't know, like to Siem Reap. And then from Siem Reap, he went to he had to hide out in a Wat. And then this is the story he told me. He was laying on the floor with the monks, and one morning, and two big United States Marines showed up, and they said, "Mr. Lewis, And I'm sure Patrick was, well, he might have been sober by then because, you're not going to drink in a Watt. Mr. Lewis. Of course, he knew what was up at that point because that's not his first run-in with the military police or anything like that in his lifetime. So, yeah, so he got taken away from the Watt. And the United States Embassy ended up putting him up in a hotel room and getting him a temporary passport and paying like whatever bribes the Cambodian government wanted to be paid at the time for his overstay. And then I think it took him about 2 weeks, of which all his meals were paid for by the embassy, and 2 weeks, and he got a flight back to, I want to say New Jersey. He moved around quite a bit. But anyway, he got back to the United States. But the funny thing is that don't think that the United States government was doing all that for him for free. They had their bill, they had their balance sheet, and they were keeping records of every little thing from every spoon of rice or whatever. And they were like trying not to allow him to get any alcohol or anything like that, I think. But he's kind of crafty because he was calling me from the that's back when they had internet shops. He was calling me from an internet shop, and I knew he was drinking, and I knew that he was in like semi-custody, like not custody, but like, this is like his last opportunity to get out, ending up in a Cambodian prison, which I've never been to one, and I never intend to go to one. Let's put it like that. So, Jed Ralston says, incredible story. Lucky he is USA, man, even if he got a bill for it. Yes, he got a bill for it, yeah. And that's the thing is that what happens is when you get a bill for that, your passport becomes null and void. In other words, you cannot leave the United States until you pay back your bill. And his bill had came to like $7,000 or something like that, which is quite a lot of money for over here. I don't think that he really got a good price, but anyway, he owed him $7,000. And then he went through some trials and tribulations and whatever. But in the end, it turned out to, I want to say it turned out to be good for him because he's kind of like ill right now. But in the end, he ended up getting full, veteran benefits, and housing, VA hospital card, and monthly check, and nurses' visits and stuff like that, and everything like that. So it was certainly much better for him to stay within the United States. He's like in a wheelchair now, one of those electric wheelchairs, because he's got I don't know what his problems are, but I hear he keeps talking about, I'm gonna go back to Thailand, I'm gonna go back to Vietnam, or I'm gonna go to Cambodia or something like that. And obviously these are pipe dreams because physically he's in all sorts of dire straits. Plus, he has to take medicine, whatever. It's all too complicated for him to dream of it. But I will say this: back when we were in our 20s, and I came over here in my 20s, and I just ended up never leaving, except for a short period of time in the United States. I had to go back and check my credits, like my work credits. We had a great time in our 20s. We had a lot of fun. I would say we probably had a lot more fun than we probably were entitled to. And a lot of stories. But times change, people get older, and the book keeps getting more pages in it with new stories written and new chapters and new characters being introduced. I just hope to stick around for a little bit while longer. And, you know, in the end, what I look forward to, well, this is my ideal scenario for my end, is just one day to like lay down in bed and just like be one with the universe and be released. Who knows? Nobody, you can't really choose it. All sorts of crazy shit happens in the world. So enjoy every moment and every day that you're blessed with, because there are no guarantees. Definitely not. You know, no guarantees. So just try to keep keep a level head and happiness in your brain. Negativity attracts negativity, and positivity attracts positivity. I think that's the opposite of like neutrons and protons, right? Jed says, that's all we can do, bro. Enjoy every moment and try to be ready and relaxed for the end. Absolutely. Amen to that. God bless you, brother. That's the way it is. I'm going to tell you a funny story that I was thinking about yesterday. So, and this is no bullshit. So I grew up in downtown Brooklyn in the 70s, right? And I've told this story a few times on the stream. My first murder I saw when I was like 5 years old and stuff like that. And by the time I was like 13 or 14 years old, I'd seen like at least 10 people murdered. That's not something, you want a kid to see. And, I'm not the only one, go through that kind of thing or whatever. There's millions of kids that go through that and they're traumatized. But the thing is that like when you're that age, you're very subject to being programmed. Your brain is a computer, right? So like you adjust and you like absorb everything that's around you, and you adjust and stuff like that. So that being said, from the neighborhood that I came from, you had to be ready, always watch your back, always keep your eyes out in the back of your head and everything like that. And if you had a few good friends, you were very lucky. And try to watch each other's backs and stuff like that. There were gangs. I was never in a gang, but that would come later. That I'll tell you my story about the time that I used to work for the Italian mafia and for the black mafia in Harlem, and that was a period of my life. But I wasn't a gangster or anything like that. I was just doing work, like real work. So I knew a lot of some of the characters that you might have heard in the news, stuff like that. Like in 1987, I was working in an after-hours club in Philadelphia. And if you know anything about Italian mafia stories, especially from Philadelphia, that was during the Nicky Scarfo wars, where he had gone crazy and he's like trying to assassinate everybody and stuff like that. And the place that I was working was run by what were called the DeMarco brothers, and they were like a separate faction or whatever. It was a whole story. Every single night there were fights and everything like that. I was a barback. I was like 18 years old. I'm not looking for any fights or anything like that. I'm looking for chicks, and a little bit of money for a couple of brews. Sit up on the roof, watch the sky. And if you get lucky with a girl, fantastic. That was my main interest. That's all I wanted to do. Whatever. So anyway, I ended up leaving that place because I'd got the lowdown from some of the higher ups who worked there that something was going to go down, and something did go down. Thank goodness. I'd left there a week earlier, and a week after I left, there were 3 dead bodies that were, and I think after that, that after hours club got closed because of that, because that's just a little bit too much for the police to close their eyes to, I guess. I don't know. But the only reason I got that job in Philadelphia was because I knew the Genovese family in New York City, because I sort of had like an uncle who used to look after me and stuff like that. So, like, if you wanted to get a job like in an after hours, like Italian mob joint or whatever, they got to know who you are, So his name was Boris. He made the phone call, got me the job because I told him I was going to Philly, whatever. And so that was all set up like that. Interesting story. All those people that I'm talking about now are long gone. And some of them, may their souls rest in heaven. And the other ones, I'm sorry, there's no I can do for them because I know that they're probably having a very hard time in hell. That's kind of sick and twisted, but that's the truth. We used to have a joke, like, and I was never a stick-up guy. I was never like a tough guy, like, I handled my business and everything like that, but like I was never a guy like looking for trouble, looking for fights, or an enforcer, or debt collector, or drug dealer, or none of that stuff. But we used to have a joke, because like everybody had a different role, in like the social clubs and stuff like that. And the joke was like this. The joke goes like this, like, hey Joey, I hear they're looking for you. Yeah, Raphael, they're looking for me, and I don't know if I'm gonna be able to make it. And Joey says to Raphael, he says, Raphael, listen, man, when you get to heaven, all your buddies, they got an air-conditioned room to save for you, and you're gonna have some of the finest mozzarella you ever had in your life. So that was like kind of like a running joke where death was expected. Oh, so that's what I was thinking about. Get back to what you said, Jed, about like just hope for like a peaceful life, and one day close your eyes and be released from this mortal coil. And that reminded me of the story yesterday, and that's when I went off on that tangent. Was when I grew up in a violent neighborhood. There's a lot of violence and stuff like that. And like I remember, so I was thinking about this yesterday. Like I don't know how it came up or whatever, but I was thinking about it. How me and my friends would actually, and we were like 12, 13, 14, 15 years old, would actually prepare ourselves in our minds for our deaths, because we would like, well, all right, well, if that's going to happen, how do you handle it? If you've been stabbed or shot or beaten to death, stomped down or whatever, how are you going to handle that? Because this was a very real possibility. So I was reflecting on that, but thankfully for me, I was able to get away from all of that. And the way I got away from all of that was I didn't want to compete with my fellow teenagers anymore, because as I said, I'd seen brutal acts of violence when I was 5 until the time I was like 13, and I felt like the kids that I was hanging around at that time, they were just experiencing and dabbling in violence, and I was like, man, I want nothing to do with this. I want nothing. I know what happens. I know how bad it can be, and so what I did was I started playing chess in Washington Square Park. And so the time that I turned 14 years, around that age, 14 years old until the time I was like 20, 6 years. I mean, I worked in Greenwich Village. I was a bartender. I worked as a doorman. Did other things. But, I would hang out in Washington Square Park, play chess, chat with some very interesting people. The beautiful thing about Washington Square Park back in the 80s was that, this is all before the internet and stuff like that, people would have to go out to go interact, right? So like Washington Square Park would have all these chess tables, and during the summer, people would just congregate there, and like have all sorts of conversations. I mean, people from all walks of life, from all over the globe, and everything like that. It was like always something interesting to talk about, and smart people, stupid people, everything was there. And that's a cat, right? Okay. Yeah, so I really got an education. There. Hello, look, Malak. I got an education there, and years later when I stayed eating back then, because like the guys that I knew were all like at least 20 years older than me, so they weren't looking to like out compete me or anything like that. Most of them, I don't say most of them, but a very large percent of them, were ex-convicts and stuff like that, and they're chill, hanging out, trying to make sure that that they wanted to get to the end of their road and their story without going back to jail or committing crimes or doing whatever. You don't know what people do. So, but a lot of them also were like artists, and we had one guy who was called Jimmy, the piano player. He played jazz piano in one of the bars in the West Village. And we had an artist, Tony Springer. We had all sorts of characters. It was a wonderful time, really wonderful time. And fortunately for me, I was one of the few younger people there, and the older guys would look out after me, and they knew that they knew that I was like semi-street kid, whatever, and they would drop knowledge on me, and I would learn. I was listening. I was ready to learn. I was always ready to learn. The problem was that my I really didn't have a father who was too attentive, who were very nice, to be actually very honest with you. So I'd go out and do my thing, and I found older men who would be, sort of take me under their wing and tell me how the world worked, You really need that as a young man. You need somebody to tell you, you need an older person who has life experiences to tell you things that might sound later in your life like stupid, just oh yeah, everybody knows that. But somebody who's 14 years old, 13 years old, or whatever, younger, they don't know that. You got to tell them. You got to teach them. Jed says, can't change the truth, bro. Praise Lord. Cat having a good time. Oh yeah, that sounded like a cat to you, right? I was looking at the lady with the baby, and she was like looking over. So I'm sure if it wasn't a cat, she would have been, yeah. So I guess you picked up on that. That had to be a cat. She never knew. It might have been. I was afraid it was like some like woman, or young lady, crying for help or something like that. Especially because sometimes my second language doesn't kick in all that quick. Because I can speak Thai, I can speak a bit of French, and I can speak a bit of Spanish. So, whatever. I strongly advise anybody, not advise, but I would encourage the idea of embracing the possibility of learning a second language, or even learning a new dialect and way to talk in English. Like, for instance, when I grew up in downtown Brooklyn, I didn't sound anything like I sound now. I do revert sometimes when I get a little heated or something like that. I'll let you know right away. I'm I go zero to 100 just in my demeanor, depending on the situation. But I will say this: I will never fuck with Thai people, or like get in an argument with them, or a fight with them, or anything like that, because I can tell you, you could be 25 feet tall, and you're gonna get your ass kicked. And I don't feel like getting my ass kicked. I've had it kicked before. Arun Swat Yai. And one thing I've learned is if you've had your ass kicked more than once, I mean like to like death's door and stuff like that, and that's happened to me 3 times, or maybe 4. You get to that point where even after you recover, and I've recovered, it's been years and years and years since I had traumatic experience. You still have that feeling like if if you get one more punch, you're just gonna like somebody hits you one more time. That's it. You know, you just can't take it no more. That's the way I feel. I can't take it. I can't. You know. No, thank you. You know. Yeah. So, Jed, where are you calling out from today, anyway? If you don't mind me asking, maybe you could just like give the answer. The answers a lot of people like to give is, I am from Earth and I'm a citizen of Earth just like everybody else. Hey, man, that's all good. That's all good too. But if you feel like giving a shout out, definitely give a shout out. Hey, what do you call somebody look out? By room ban oneนี้ไหม วันทำนางที่รวมบ้านไหมไม่ได้ทำอ๋อไม่ So that's the thing. So Jed says originally Aussie. Aussie. I have a story about Australia, by the way. This is a good one too. I have started trying Thai and learning from, but I am shit. Okay, so here's how I learned Thai. When I first arrived, I was like 24 or 5 years old or something like that, right? And I bought like the first week, 2 days or whatever it was that I was there. It was different back then. Like, I mean, the girls were like absolutely off the hook. But, oh, that's too bad. I hope we never like to see that. Oh, that's too bad. All right, anyway, moving on. So, like, all the girls, like, off the hook and everything like that, you know? And so I grabbed myself this little pamphlet, and it was written in phonetics, right? So like there was no like Thai writing in it. It was phonetics. So the first thing I learned was like sawadee cup and stuff like that. You know, like I learned that. And I think this book was like only like 20 pages long or something like that. But I learned every single word that was in that book. And then once I learned all the words in that book, then I started like trying to use it. You know, you can't be shy about trying to speak Thai. Thai people are very patient, and they also super appreciate you if you try to speak their language. You know, we're guests, you know, we are guests in their country, just as every person is a guest in every other country. Unfortunately, some of the Muslims don't get it in the UK and Ireland and stuff like that, the United States, whatever, because their whole thing is about world domination, and I'm sorry to say that, and I don't say that with any hate in my heart or anything like that, but I know that to be a fact as part of their religion and their philosophy. And Saladin is smiling at them now because it was a brilliant strategy. They didn't even have to go to war. So anyway, but that being aside, what were we saying? Oh yeah, from Aussie. So I learned to speak phonetics. And then, you know, I had a couple girlfriends before I met my wife. So, you know, they're like, taught me some words. But I was always trying, you know, I wanted to learn. And the reason I want to learn was because, hey, man, I'm here. I want to join the party. You know what I mean? If you go to a country, you can't speak the language. I mean, you really just like, passing through, right? But since then, since those times when I first came over, I still have relationships, friendly relationships with guys and gals and stuff like that I knew. We talk on Facebook, and stuff like that. So, of course, I would strongly advise. I would strongly suggest that people speak multiple languages because it's a blessing. It really is. It's just a blessing, and and when you can converse and stuff like that. So anyway, so I can't read or write Thai. I know some of the alphabet, but Jaw John, Gao Gai, Ling, stuff like that, or whatever. But I wouldn't call myself a real good student. I mean, I should have spent more time trying to learn the alphabet, and maybe I still will. But I got to a point where I had these building blocks of phonetics to the point where I can communicate, and pretty much anything I want to communicate, beyond just like ordering food in a restaurant. Arun Swat Yai Sabadi Lupao.วันนี้ฝนตกไหมน่าจะฝนตกอ่ะอ๋อแม่ okay. So I got up to that point, right? Sawadi dan chao. Kun Balding, what's up, brother? How you doing? Good to see you. Thank goodness you're here. I just want to let you know that I sent you a request to be a moderator in the chat if you feel like it. Because, hey, man, that's cool. I don't know. I never, I just thought that's cool, man. So, sawadi don chao. Sabadi lupao. Kun yun na. แล้วก็คุณยังมาบอกผมอยู่จังหวัดอะไรจังหวัดสุรินทร์ no แต่บุ้มเป็นคนสุรินทร์ yeah, right, exactly. So Ted says, yeah, you want to be part of the culture and community, right? And it's really a rich community and diverse and everything like that. And so I like history, and I have books on history. I don't only just look it on the internet, and so like learning about the rich history of Southeast Asia, which is really amazing because there were a lot of things that were going on since like the 200 BC. I mean, like, and they're finding out more and more these days too. Like we could go down that other rabbit hole of like advanced ancient civilizations that we never even knew about. That like all of a sudden, for some reason, like the light bulb went off in a lot of people, realizing there's something wrong with a 6,000-year-old story. Everybody give a shout out if you think there was an ancient civilization on Earth before us. I, for one, think yes. Mr. Balding, what's your opinion on Thai superstitions? Well, I have superstitions myself. But I lost that superstition yesterday. The reason why I lost that superstition yesterday is because I have finally given up one of my vices, one of my last vices. And that is, I used to like to bet on sports. Like bet on a football game, put 200 pounds on a football game or a boxing match or something like that. And I really enjoyed that. But the problem is I used to tell myself, I don't have a gambling problem, I just have a winning problem, right? And so that's a nice way to rationalize a bad habit. And you also have to realize when you are a member and you are a provider, if you are taking spare money to wager on sports and constantly losing, it's a problem. And so for me, it became a problem. It's become a problem for a while. And I finally, I just gave up. I just said, I asked Jesus or whoever power there may be to release this weight off of my shoulders. And amazingly, this is really amazing. It's like when I quit smoking, it was immediately released off of me. I have no desire to gamble. But I had a superstition about gambling. And it went like this, that every time I made a bet, like I bet like a 9, 10 team parlay or something like that, the stuff you never win. But if I ever did win, what I had to do was I would put the bet in, but I'd have to fall asleep before the matches started, and I'd have to wake up after all the matches were finished. And that was my only chance to win, because every time I bet and I was watching the event, I lost. So, but I did win a few times when I went to sleep. So I don't know what you think about that superstition, but yeah, that was one of my superstitions. So Jed, do you have any tips? Maybe you can be a bookie. No, I will not be a bookie. I will not have anything to do with it. I've given my life up to spirituality, which doesn't necessarily relegate myself to Jesus Christ. I believe in Buddha. I believe in the spirit. I believe in the power of universe and these kinds of things. So I know that it's not a good thing to do, and it's not helping. And look, hey man, if you've got plenty of bread and you bet with, what's the old saying? You bet with your head and not above it. Well, I just don't bet. I don't want to do it anymore. And yesterday I had stopped, and I had one of the best days I had in a long, long time. I went out, and this is another thing that causes the problems that it causes. I went out yesterday, and I did a live video of me and my wife cleaning up the garden, burning up the old leaves and stuff like that. One of the best days I've had in time. And had I had like a 200 baht bet on some stupid game somewhere in the world, I probably wouldn't have come out and been part of that. And you miss that, So that's why I'm very happy not to be involved with that. And it's been released from me. I'm completely released from that. And Jed says, God bless you, brother. Bring me strength to hear you doing well. Well, it brings me strength when you chat with me and know that we are all one, and we're here on this planet together. And there's a lot of bad things that happen in this world, but that's done by a very small percent of the people on this planet, unfortunately, and they affect the rest of us. But we just keep the good going, and just keep. So you say, Jed says, I'm struggling with drinking at the moment, but also finding days I'm not drinking anything, and those are my best days, right? And so yeah, I had that problem too, you know. So like, so here's the thing, if you realize if drinking gets in the way of your life, you have a problem, right? It's very clear. So it's not the solution to like happiness. It's an escape. It's like a semi-escape or whatever. But the thing is you're not escaping because you're still there, and people see you drinking. And even though Thailand is very lax, like people aren't really going to judge you for drinking, because you know how Thai society is. But you yourself might want to consider stopping drinking completely, because I didn't know this. When I was drinking, okay, I'll tell you the truth. When I was drinking, I used to drink a lot. I used to think everybody drank. My opinion was I thought everybody drank. I just thought I drank more than everybody else. As it turns out, if you look at the statistics in the world, it's like 5% of the people in the world drink too much, or like actively drink. It's only 5%. And you think about what 5% can do. They can certainly run up a very good GDP for France and Germany and stuff like that, with all the money they spend on that shit. But then I did realize that another thing I realized was that in my life, when I was a teenager, I did have fun drinking sometimes with the girls and guys and stuff like that. We definitely had fun because like we're like experiencing the world, brand new world and stuff like that. But as you get older, the good times become fewer and fewer and fewer and far between. And I just realized that I wasn't happy. It was affecting my brain. I wasn't able to think as well as I wanted to think, and I just ended up stopping. You know, and praise be to the higher power, whoever it may be. I don't know what it is. I'd like to think that it's the spirit of the universe and stuff like that. But you can do it. All you have to do is make the decision, and once you make that decision, you know, I've tried AA in the past and stuff like that. It never worked for me, but I hadn't really made the decision. Once I made the decision, man, that was it. Game over. I was ready. Just clear your mind. And I will tell you another thing. Hey, Mr. Balding says, I don't drink, but enjoy the broccoli from time to time. Well, I hear that too. I'm allergic to the broccoli, so that's so strange. Like, you know what I'm talking about? Anyway, so what was I gonna say? What were we saying? We're saying, yeah. So you just make up your mind and stuff like that, and it becomes very easier every day, and you know, you really find out there's a lot of benefit to it. And the thing is, oh right, what I was gonna say is, I don't know if you've ever heard of neuroplasticity. Neuroplasticity is what everybody can do. What you can do is you can reprogram yourself. So like you've heard like about like cults and stuff like that. That's how they program people. Well, it's a fact. It really does happen. I mean, and it happens to kids who grow up in radical Muslim nations where their parents will strap a bomb on them and tell them, hey, just go run into the crowd and set it off, and you're going to you're going to be a martyr, and everybody's going to love you. And the kids do it, right? And you have other examples in other religions and other things and like that, and other people programming and stuff like that. But that goes to neuroplasticity. So if once you're aware of neuroplasticity, that means you will know that you can change the programming of your brain. You really can. You can like download new software. Basically, it takes a little work, takes some meditation, but you can do it. And it comes to be to the point where it crosses over to aspects of like, are you a happy person or are you an unhappy person, right? Well, that's a choice. So I choose to be a happy person, all right? But some people, they don't choose to be a happy person. They choose to be absolutely miserable. Like you ever meet somebody who wakes up and and like you're happy and they just look at you and say, I'm not a morning person. Well, what kind of ridiculous bullshit is that? I'm not a morning person. What do you mean you're not a morning person? You just slept, presumably, and you woke up. The day's here. The sun's coming up. I'm not a morning person. No, you're a fucking miserable person. That's what you are, and you're trying to project that shit on other people. So that's my thing. Is that happiness takes work. Unhappiness takes less work, but unhappiness is cyclical thinking. Like your brain runs around in circles about these things that you just decide to, holy shit, the star of our show is out today. This is the first time in a while. Can everybody see the star of our show decided to show up? Holy cow, look at that. Isn't that amazing? That sun is coming up over the mountain and you see the clouds just drifting away like that. Oh, wow. That is something beautiful, man. I really appreciate that. And you know how much like photons and neutrons and all sorts of whatever metaphysical, physical calculus and everything that's going into all of that is so immeasurable and inconceivable to us. Like it's like something we don't even know about. I mean, and I'm going to say this, I always say this, there is no man on this planet, no woman on this planet that has enough money, bars of gold, or silver coins, pieces of silver, as they used to say, that can afford to pay for that. Nobody can buy that. And it's here for us. And without it, everybody's not going to be able to be around. So, hey, I give gratitude. Thank you to the sun for coming up today. It's going to be a beautiful day. And wow, let's just enjoy it, enjoy the good things. And, if people are having a bad time, depending on how close they are to you, if they're close to you, maybe you want to try and help them out of a bad time. But if they're just somebody, just get away from them and continue having a good time, because the greatest defeat you can have in this world is when somebody takes away your happiness. That's why they make jails, because they figured it out. If they can take away your happiness, they took away everything from you. Doesn't matter how much money you have. You got billionaires who commit suicide. Don't let anybody ever take your happiness away. And yeah, man, I live by that. Jed says it's here for everyone. That's good. That's being good. If you're in Bangkok, Hilton, maybe it's not a lot of sunshine. Also, Udon is pissing down rain and gray skies. Yeah, that's the thing. I wanted to ask you: is Udon near Isan? I can't remember. I know where Udon is. I've been to Udon. I've been to Isan. I just can't put my finger on where Udon is at the moment, and I don't know why. I guess it's because I've been living in the north so long, but I don't think. I mean, it might be Udon Thani. I think it's in the south. Oh, it is in Isan. Oh, okay, cool. All right, so that. Oh, fantastic. Isan, Isan has drought, right? Like sometimes you're in Isan, and it doesn't rain. But they do say one thing about Isan: they have the most beautiful girls in Isan, and I think it's kind of true. But I made sure that I didn't marry the most beautiful girl, and I also made sure that she was older than me. I mean, younger than me. Excuse me, because I don't want to live after. If my wife predeceased me, I would not be happy. And if my wife was too beautiful, then I'd have to worry every single day. So I don't want to worry. My wife loves me to pieces, and I love her too. So, I don't know. When I was younger, though, I saw those Isan girls. Wow, hot, hot, hot. So, Jed says that's about an hour drive from Nong Khai and the border to Laos. Oh, okay. So if it's an hour, so you're in the east. All right, Udon Thani is in the east. Sawadee krap, sabadi lupao. วันนี้ออกกำลังไหม ออกกำลังแล้วเหรอ So you're on the east side. But if you cross over to Laos, right, you're like northeast also, right? So Udon Thani, is that below Paeao? And then underneath the Udon Thani would be Isan? I don't know. Depends which way you go, because I know like when I'm driving to Bangkok, I got to pass through like Phitsanulok and another one called Wat. And a few different ampos and stuff like that. Isan used to be part of Laos. That is true, sir. But Laos also used to be part of Thailand. So I don't know. Flip a coin. But actually, I'll tell you something. I don't know if I don't know, Mr. Balding and Jed, were you guys here yesterday? In the stream or day before yesterday, have you heard me talk about Hun Sen? Either one of you guys hear me talk about Hun Sen? Because I learned something about Hun Sen that I was flabbergasted, because I had been grossly misinformed. Okay, so about the beef that there is at the border right now, and like the Cambodia launched a couple of missiles into a 7-Eleven and a hospital. Run Sawat Kunta Sabadi Lupao. Killed some people. And then the Cambodians are, trying to get more land by placing landmines down so that people can't come in and whatever. And then the Thai Air Force responded and stuff like that. Well, the first thing I was surprised was, I wasn't surprised by this, but this is a really good thing. Like only 7 or 11 casualties were on the Thai side from that unprovoked bombing, and it was unprovoked. And it's not just because I live in Thailand. I don't want to be like a super Thai national or anything like that. But the Royal Thai Air Force then had to respond, right? So they did respond, and they did a series of strikes and stuff like that. And from the Thai news and the United States news, the United States news said that they thought that about 5,000 Cambodians were killed in those airstrikes. And Thai news said something like between 2,000 and 3,000. Very hard to calculate the numbers, especially in these places. There's many people don't even have birth certificates and stuff like that. So no, he didn't get the prime minister sacked. The lady, the girl, the Texan's daughter, she got herself sacked. 100%. She's guilty of treason. Here's the thing. Let me tell you about Hun Sen, because I didn't know this. See, in 1985, the movie The Killing Fields came out, and that was about Pol Pot and what they were doing in Cambodia, and they were murdering their own people, like reprogramming the whole thing, right? And that came out the movie came out in 1985, but the movement of Pol Pot started in 1975, right? And so in 1975, he's makes a decision to, get his group of thugs together and, to get some sort of a communist movement going, because at that time, it was the political state of being du jour. But anyway, that was in 1975, and the fellow by the way, Pol Pot is not his real name, but another fellow whose real name is not Hun Sen, but we all know him by Hun Sen, at the age of 18, joins Pol Pot, right? So now he joins Pol Pot, and he's like a henchman for him. And Pol Pot says, "Oh, go murder these people over here and that," and so whatever. And Hun Sen does a good job. And then another year passes, and Hun Sen murders and genocides another 500,000 people, 100,000 people, whatever it is, right? And Pol Pot says to Hun Sen, "You're a really good, loyal soldier. I'm going to promote you to be an officer in the Khmer Rouge." And Hun Sen's like, "Yes, thank you. I'm being recognized for my power." So now Hun Sen has even more power. So this is from the year 1975 up until 1978. And he continues on murdering, genociding. I think the amount of people they came up with that they had genocided was 3 million of their own people. And they did it by horrific means. I will not go into, but it was a real brutal, nasty subject. But we're talking about Hun Sen. So in 1977, Pol Pot sacks Phnom Penh with Pol Pot sacks Phnom Penh with Hun Sen, who has now risen to the rank of brigadier general in the Khmer Rouge, right? And Prince Norodom Sihanouk at that time flees, right? He just says, he figures, these guys are going to kill me, and, a pretty good idea to leave, right? So he leaves, right? And he takes his family with him. Anyway, so that's in 1977. So 1977. Now Paul Pot, he's the big man on campus. He's the big man. He's in charge. In fact, people, Arun Sawat, Arun Sawat, Arun Sawat. So everybody's looking at him like like he's a king, a god, a deity. Because they know that if they cross his path, he'll just murk them, right? Facts, right? These are facts. So Hun Sen, he like appoints himself. I don't know what position he appointed himself to, or what official name, like prime minister or king or anything like that. But what he didn't do was he did not promote his brigadier general, who had murdered and genocided personally 2 Cambodians. He didn't give him a very high position in the field in the Phnom Penh. So Hun Sen obviously felt a little slighted. He's like, Paul, I've been with you all these years, man. We just murdered all these people together. Like why can't you give me a better position in the government? And Paul Pot's like, I'm the king now, and I'm the big boss, and everything. You're going to do whatever I say. We achieved my goal. And Hun Sen was like, well, I thought it was our goal. And Paul Pot's like, no. So what Hun Sen does is in 1979, he gets his Khmer Rouge faction that he's in control of and goes off to Vietnam. And he goes off to Vietnam and he makes a deal with the Vietnamese government saying, listen, this Pol Pot, he's a maniac. He's genocided all these people. I was never part of that. This is like totally crazy. We got to get rid of this, dictator and whatever, So Vietnam gives Hun Sen an army to go along with his Khmer army. And as this was all done, not because they cared one way or another about the Khmer Rouge or dictatorship or anything like that. This was all just about business and trade deals and labor deals, right? And they say, yeah, do you think you could take Pol Pot out? And Hun says, listen, I'm the brigadier general. I've been running the show more than Pol Pot. So in 1979, they cross over and they kick Pol Pot out of Phnom Penh, right? At this time, Hun Sen is 26 years old, and he's appointed at that moment. He's appointed to the position of the international ambassador of what became named at that point the Kingdom of Kampuchea. Right, so he's like 26 years old now. He's got a real position, but it's probably not good enough for him. And Pol Pot doesn't get prosecuted for any of his, war crimes or anything like that, even though Hun Sen did most of the dirty work. And Pol Pot gets relegated, gets banished to a province, like on a small area down by the ocean or whatever. They don't want to see him. They tell him, listen, Pol Pot, we rode with you. We murdered all these people with you. We genocided all these people with you. But you're not calling the shots anymore. I'm Hun Sen and I'm in charge. And I am Khmer Rouge. I am Khmer Rouge. That's what he said. Pol Pot knew he couldn't do anything about it. He moved to the province and he lived there for another 30, 40 years in his little in his little province there, and he got to be like the king of a tiny province or whatever, and that was good enough for him because he realized that if he stepped out of line, he was going to end up like what he had helped and what he had done to his own people. So now the year is 1979, and Hun Sen is the the Minister of Foreign Affairs, International Foreign Affairs. Lo and behold, 6 years later, guess who becomes the Prime Minister of the Kingdom of Kampuchea? It doesn't take too much to guess, but at the age of 32, Hun Sen is now the Prime Minister of the Kingdom of Kampuchea. And not only is he the Prime Minister of Kampuchea, Prince Norodom Sihanouk was invited to come back. But one of the conditions for him to come back was that in public, on television, he had to kneel and grovel at the feet of Hun Sen. This is not a very good look for a king. Anyway, this did happen. It's documented. And King Norodom Sihanouk is, I think he's crossed over to the other, and his son lives there, and is like just very, sort of a very peaceful life, whatever. Make any trouble. He's trying to keep his head on his shoulders. But anyway, Hun Sen manages to hold on to power from 1979 until I think it was like year 2021. He is the dictator. And he's not a prime minister. He wasn't the prime minister. He's a dictator of Cambodia. And part of being a dictator of Cambodia is that he continued on with the Khmer Rouge ethos, which was educating Cambodians in a way that was like totally false. You wouldn't believe the things like that they believed, that they had taught you, because they're programmed. These kids have been being programmed by the Khmer Rouge policies, which Hun Sen became the leader of Khmer Rouge, right? So now, Run Suakunta Pota Sabari Lupa Agati Mai. ออกกำลังทุกวันครับถ้าหากว่ามันไม่ฝนตก เท้าดีไหมมันเจ็บไหมเท้าทุกไม่เจ็บนะยายไปเอลเหรอยังไม่ตื่นนะโอเคพ่อตาเกมกำลังขับบ้านเจ้า So what happens is that Hun Sen is the leader of the Khmer Rouge, right? And he continues the Khmer Rouge policies. And he has totally, emasculated the king of Cambodia and his family, and surprisingly let them survive, I guess for whatever political reasons he felt necessary. And did nothing to really improve Cambodia. I mean, he just pretty much was as corrupt as possible. And he did become friends with the Shinawat family. Thaksin is the father of the prime minister, or former prime minister. Shinawat is the last name. And so what happened is during the last 20 years, Thaksin had made a lot of deals with Hun Sen in laying down like information technology and satellites and television and electric stuff like that. So they were like buddies in that way, in that regard, right? But when you do business, business is done different ways in different countries and different parts of the world and stuff like that. And most of the world, it might surprise you when you do business with people. You'll sit down, you'll have dinner, you'll go to each other's houses, you'll consider each other friends or something like that. And so what happened is Thaksin's daughter, who was the prime minister of Thailand at that time, called Hun Sen. So I think Hun Sen abdicated power just recently and gave it to his son. So she calls Hun Sen and apologizes in a phone call that was made public, apologizes for Thai behavior. Well, if you ask me, and it was broadcast, this conversation was broadcast, that she's the prime minister of Thailand and she's calling up Cambodia, apologizing and trying to work out some deal that's favorable for Cambodia. I think there's a word for that. Does anybody know what that word is? It starts with a T and ends with an N. Anyway, so that became public knowledge. No, that starts with a T and ends with a T. I mean, starts with a T and ends with an N. It's called treason. And last I knew, committing treason in any country is punishable by capital punishment. I don't know if they're going to do it to her. I doubt they will. I don't think the United States would executes people for committing treason anymore. But not so long ago, and I'm talking about 50 years ago, if you committed treason, even like in the United States or a European country, forget about Russia. Russia, they that's like a daily business. I mean, you get like, whatever. I don't even want to get into that. But, that is a crime that is, called treason, which is you're acting against the interests of your country. And she was the prime minister. She had no business doing that. It's a stupid move. She's not very intelligent. She should never have done that. And it only caused more problems. So what the thing is, Thailand has a military that just could squash Cambodia. I mean, just blow them to pieces in a week if they wanted to. But Thailand at the same time, respects its diplomatic relationships around the world, right? If this was the Israelis, I don't know, maybe the Israelis would have gone in there and just wiped out all of Cambodia like they're doing to Gaza. I don't know, but Thailand doesn't want to look like mass murderers or anything like that. They're trying to work it out. Previously there were a lot of trade deals and stuff like that with Cambodia and Thailand. A lot of Cambodians would come to Thailand to work because they get more money to work here, So it's really a fucked up situation that's being run by the Khmer Rouge. Because if you ask me, the killing fields, if you ever heard about the killing fields and the killing tree, it never ended. And the Khmer Rouge never lost power. All they did was they pulled a little 3-card monte trick where they put Pol Pot, into his own province, made him king, because he was going to get killed anyway by governments from the outside for what he did. He's responsible for the genocide. He was going to get taken out anyway. So Hun Sen made a really, he made a grandmaster to go to Vietnam, play a diplomatic game, get there, whatever, make this fake overthrow or whatever, and Khmer is ruling Cambodia. And they've been ruling Cambodia since the 1970s, and they're still practicing their communist and programming ways. They're still doing it to this day. They are. And I didn't believe it until 2 days ago, because my wife told me that Hun Sen was Khmer Rouge. And I didn't believe it, because in 1985, when I saw the killing fields, in my mind, because I wasn't all that educated, but in my mind, I believed, I'd known about Pol Pot and all the terrible things he did. I had just watched the killing fields, right? And in my mind, oh wow, King Norodom Sihanouk is back, and the hero Hun Sen comes back, and he's going to bring democracy and improve Cambodia and repair the damage that Pol Pot did and everything like that, and the world's going to be a better place. And none of that was true. And I didn't know that until 2 days ago. Not only because my wife told me, I didn't believe her. I looked like she had two heads, or she was from the planet, from Mars. And I had to do research and I had to look and find out. And I did. And I found out Hun Sen is Khmer Rouge. He was, or I think he's still alive, but he's Khmer Rouge. Everybody who works for him is Khmer Rouge. The king of or prince of Thailand has to grovel at his feet publicly. And they have their own education system where they teach them really strange ideas about, history, which aren't true. So that changed my whole perception about the thing on the border, because when I heard the thing on the border, I was like, oh, poor Cambodians, they're always getting pushed around, they don't have any power or anything like that. And of course, Thailand could just they might be greedy and trying to take a little bit of land back or whatever. That's the narrative that I believed. But after I found out the reality, who Hun Sen is or was, and that he is Khmer Rouge and he's responsible for the genocide of 3 million people, and he is brainwashing young Cambodians into believing some fantasy. It's just terrible. And what I think, personally, is that the Cambodian people would be better off if Vietnam, Laos, and Thailand just chopped up Cambodia and decided none of these people are in power anymore, and we're going to do the right thing, and bring Cambodia into the 21st century, or something like that. I don't know. I don't know what the solution is, but I know the solution is not Hun Sen. It's not his son. It's not the Khmer Rouge. It's not people who, commit holocausts and genocide, murdering 3 million people. Anyway. That's the end of our walk, but this is our house, the house my wife and I live in. And I'll tell you something about this house. This house was designed by my wife on Google SketchUp. So she designed it, and after she designed it, right, she gave it to an architect, and the architect drew it up so it's structurally sound and everything like that and whatever. So this is the house that we live in, designed by my wife. It's beautiful, and it's a really nice place to live, and I give thanks every day for the possibility and ability to be living here. And we have this garden over here, a little table, and I'll show you another guy that we have here. He's very popular in the shorts, and I don't know why. I asked the question. I have to watch out for cobras, because there are cobras here, so just be real careful. But this guy right here, Mr. Q, or I call him Mr. T. And hey, Gumaru, how you doing this morning? Good to see you. I hope everything's doing well and you're having a wonderful, blessed morning. We are too. So here is this tortoise. He's a sulcata tortoise, which is also known as the African spurred tortoise, and they are the third largest tortoise in the world. And they come from the Sahel region of Africa, which is basically from the Saharan, the top of the Saharan belt, goes through Burkina Faso, Chad, Niger, Yemen, and stuff like that, east to west, So that's where these guys are from, and normally they feed on grass, though it's been recorded that sometimes they eat carrion. Carrion is like a dead animal or something like that. But anyway, what do these guys eat? These guys eat, it's important to know what these guys eat, actually. You can't just give them fruits and stuff like that, because it's bad for them. What you give them is a lot of vegetation, which is high in fiber, right? So it's high in fiber, and they digest it. I don't know how they get their nutrients or whatever, but that's how they do it, and they eat tons of it. My wife gives them watermelon rinds, mulberry leaves, cucumbers, carrots, and he loves all those sorts of things. Me and Mr. Balding feed on grass. Yeah, I got you. That did not go over my head. Very funny. I don't think they eat bamboo. I think that might be a little bit too hard for them. You know, bamboo is a wonderful, actually, wonderful piece of vegetation. You can build so much with it, and do so many different things with it, and it grows so fast and it's so abundant. It just boggles the mind to me that people don't use bamboo more often in the West. But like if you like look at pictures of Shanghai, you see see the developers. They'll build their scaffolding up to 40 floors up, 54 floors up, or whatever it is, out of bamboo, and it's just fine. Strong. Sometimes bamboo is even stronger than iron. I think actually bamboo is stronger than iron. I was thinking about steel. I'm not sure if it's stronger than steel. I kind of doubt it. But anyway, this is our garden here, and Jed said, "That looks like a dream place to live, bro. You have done well." Thank you. I appreciate that too, man. You know, and uh, it took a lot. It took a lot to get to this point. Um, and yeah, we're here. We're here now, and I'm happy to be part of it. And whatever time we have on this planet, and just try to enjoy that time with bringing